The attack took place Libya, September 11th, 2012, at 9:40 p.m. local time. Members of Ansar al-Sharia attacked the American diplomatic compound in Benghazi, resulting in the deaths of both United States Ambassador to Libya, J. Christopher Stevens, and U.S. Foreign Service Information Management Officer Sean Smith. At around 4 a.m. on September 12th, the group launched mortar attack against a CIA annex approximately a mile and a half away, killing 2 CIA contractors, Tyrone S. Woods and Glenn Dougherty, wounding 10 others. Initial analysis by the CIA, repeated by top government officials, indicates the attack spontaneously arose from a protest. Subsequent investigation showed the attack was premeditated, although rioters and looters not originally part of the group may have joined in after the attack. Let's get facts on this and what led to it. Rebellion and civil war began. Gaddafi, accusing the rebels of being drug linked to Al-Qaeda, proclaimed that he would rather die a martyr than leave Libya. As he announced that, the rebels would be hunted down in the street, house by house, wardrobe by wardrobe. The army opened up fire, killing hundreds. In the conflict's early moments, it appeared that Gaddafi's government was the greater, with firepower to be victorious, but both sides disregarded the laws of war, committing human rights abuses, torture, extrajudicial executions, revenge attacks. February 26, the United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 1970, suspending Libya from the UN Human Rights Council, implementing sanctions, and calling for International Criminal Court, investigating into the killing of unarmed civilians. In March of that year, the Security Council declared a no-fly zone to protect the civilian population from aerial bombardment, calling on foreign nations to enforce it. It also specifically prohibited foreign occupation. Qatar sent hundreds of troops to support the dissidents, and along with France and the United Arab Emirates, provided weaponry and military training, all of which had violated agreements due to the fact that France had supplied Libya with over $10 million worth of small arms. Libya wasn't able to pay the bill, so France wants to make sure that Gaddafi's regime stays in so we can get their money. After all, the whole thing's truly based off of oil. NATO announced it would enforce the no-fly zone on April 30th of that year. The airstrike killed Gaddafi's 6th son and 3 of his grandsons in Tripoli. This Western military intervention was criticized by various government leftists. In June of the year, ICC issued arrest warrants for Gaddafi, his son Saif al-Islam, and his brother Abdullah Sinsusi, head of state security, for charges concerning crimes against humanity. That month, Amnesty International published their report, finding that Gaddafi's forces were responsible for numerous war crimes, but added that to a number of allegations of human rights abuses lacked credible evidence. After the fall of Tripoli, only a few towns in western Libya, such as Bani Walid, Seba, and Sirte, remained Gaddafi's stronghold. Gaddafi reportedly was planning to catch up with Sabah commander Ali Khani's forces and seek asylum in Burkina Faso. Instead, he retreated to his hometown, where he convened a meeting with his son, and intelligence chief Abdul Senussi learned that his youngest had been killed in the NATO airstrikes. Gaddafi continued to broadcast defiant audio messages through Syria-based Rai TV. On September 10th, General Massoud Abdel Hafiz announced the formation of the Republic of Fez in Seba, where Gaddafi would be president for life. Seba fell on the 22nd of September. Surrounding himself with bodyguards and a small entourage, including Mutasimi, Security Chief Mansour Dao, and Defense Minister Abu Bakr Unis Gabar, Gaddafi continually changed residence to escape NATO and the NTC shelling, devoting his days to prayer, reading the Quran, and on the 20th of October, he recorded a farewell audio message to his family, later publicized by Al Hadith, and broke out of the Sirte district in a joint civilian-military convoy, surrounding himself with his bodyguards and a small entourage. According to Dao, it was a suicide mission, as Gaddafi wanted to die in the Jafar Valley, close to where he was born. At around 8:30 a.m., NATO bombers attacked, destroying 14 vehicles, killing 53 people. The convoy scattered, and Gaddafi and those closest to him fled by a nearby village, which was shelled by rebel militia from Misrata. Fleeing to a construction site, Gaddafi and his inner cohort hid inside drainage pipes while the bodyguards battled the rebels in the conflict. Gaddafi suffered head injuries from the grenade blast while Jaburi was killed. The militia took Gaddafi prisoner, causing serious injuries as they tried to apprehend him. The events were filmed on a mobile phone. The video appears to picture Gaddafi being poked or stabbed in the anus with some kind of stick or knife, possibly a bayonet. Pulled onto the front of a pickup truck, he fell off it as it drove away. His semi-naked body was placed into an ambulance, taken to Misrata, and upon arrival, he was found to be dead. The official NTC accounts claim Gaddafi was caught in a crossfire and died from bullet wounds. However, eyewitnesses in the video from the rebels shot showed differently. The aftermath of Gaddafi's death in 2011 created a major power vacuum in Libya, leading to a decade of political chaos and a descent into civil war. This instability provided fertile grounds for terrorist organizations to flourish, most notably affiliates of ISIS and al-Qaeda, factors contributing to the rise of terror. Yet the political vacuum and collapse of institutions, his downfall left Libya with no strong central government, fracturing along tribal, regional, and ideological lines. The first transitional government failed to establish a unified and effective state, creating a permissive environment. Proliferation of militias and tribalism. After the revolution, the government policy paying salaries to former rebels caused the number of armed militias to swell tenfold. These militias misusing government funds and employing violence. Weakened border security and the collapse of the state control led to porous borders, allowing Islamist fighters' ideologies to flow into the country from other regions. Weapons from Gaddafi's arsenals also proliferated within Libya and throughout North Africa. CIA contractors, private sector professionals and companies providing specialized services to the Central Intelligence Agency, ranging from technology and intelligence analysis to support roles like logistics, janitorial services, and security. These contractors are essential for various tasks, sometimes including covert operations, but they must operate within strict limits of their contracts. Many require high-level security clearances, and some may be hired through third-party contractors or directly by the CIA for unique access or specialized skills. Qualifications. As many contractor positions require high-level security clearances, such as top-secret, special compartmented information, expertise, often seeking individuals with specialized and elite backgrounds, particularly from military or law enforcement fields. Limits. The CIA contractors perform only the duties specified in their contracts and are not involved in activities outside of the limits. They go through an extensive vetting process regardless of the hiring path individuals will go under. Varying levels of involvement. The range of the contractors' roles is broad, with many providing essential behind-the-scenes support and a few engaging in high-risk activities. The United States has not had regular diplomatic presence in Libya since withdrawing its ambassadors in 1972 and then closing the embassy after 1979, U.S. embassy burning in Libya. But since the early 2000s had been starting to normalize relations during congressional hearings, Ambassador J. Christopher Stevens, top deputy in Libya, Gregory N. Hicks, testified that Ambassador Stevens was in Benghazi in 2012 because Secretary of State Hillary Clinton wanted the post made permanent. It was understood the Secretary hoped to make an announcement to that effect during the visit to Tripoli later in the year. He also stated that Chris Stevens wanted to make a symbolic gesture to people of Benghazi that the United States stood behind their dream of establishing a new democracy. Sources say 35 U.S. personnel were working in the diplomatic mission in Benghazi at the time of the attack, of whom around 21 were CIA agents. With months of the start of the Libyan Revolution in February of 2011, the CIA had begun building a covert presence in Benghazi during the war. Elite counter-terrorist operators from the United States Delta Force were deployed to Libya as analysts, instructing the rebels on specifics about weapons and tactics. J. Christopher Stevens was named the first liaison with the Libyan opposition in March of 2011. After the end of the war, both the CIA and the United States Department were tasked with identifying and collecting arms that had flooded the country during the war, particularly shoulder-fired missiles taken from the arsenal of the Gaddafi regime, as well as securing Libyan chemical weapons stockpiles and helping train Libya's new intelligence service. Eastern Libya and Benghazi were key intelligence-gathering hubs for intelligence operatives. In fact, the CIA was monitoring Ansar al-Sharia and suspected members of al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, as well as attempting to define the leadership and loyalty of the various militias present in their interactions with the Salafi elements of Libyan society. By the time of the attack, dozens of CIA operatives were on the ground in Benghazi. In addition, it had been reported that the summer of 2012 American Joint Special Operations Command missions had begun to target Libyan militias linked to al-Qaeda network of Yassin al-Suri. By the time of the attack, a composite of U.S. Special Operation teams with 2 G.O.A.T members was already in Libya. American Joint Special Operation Command missions had been target Libyan militias linked to al-Qaeda network, as well as the network of the Yassin al-Suri. By the time of the attack, a composite of U.S. Special Operation teams with 2 G.O.A.T members was already in Libya, working on their mission profile independently of the CIA and State Department operations. There was some speculation that a diplomatic post in Benghazi was used by the CIA to smuggle weapons in from Libya to anti-Assad rebels in Syria. Investigative journalist Seymour Hersh cites an anonymous former senior Defense Department intelligence official saying the consulate's only mission was a way to provide cover for moving of arms if it had no real political role. The attack allegedly brought an end to the purported United States involvement, but did not stop the smuggling, according to Hersh's source. In January of 2014, United States House Permanent Select Committee of Intelligence cast doubt on the alleged United States involvement and reported all CIA activities in Benghazi legal. With the instability after the Civil War, in April of 2012 in Benghazi, 2 former security guards for the consul threw an IED over the fence. The incident didn't cause any casualties. 4 days later, a similar bomb was thrown at 4-vehicle convoy carrying the United Nations Special Envoy to Libya, exploding 12 feet from the United Nations vehicles without injuring people. In May of 2012, an al-Qaeda affiliate calling itself the Brigades of the imprisoned Sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman claimed responsibility for the attack on the International Red Cross office in Benghazi. On August 6th, the ICRC suspended operations in Benghazi. The head of the ICRC's delegation in Libya said the aid group was appalled by the attack and extremely concerned about the escalating violence in Libya. The Brigades of the imprisoned Sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman released a video of what was said to be detonation of explosive devices outside the gates of the consulate for June 6th, which caused no casualties but blew a hole in the consulate's perimeter wall, described by one of the individuals big enough for 40 men to go through. On the day of the attack, September 11th, 2012, 2 consulate security guards spotted a man in a Libyan police uniform taking pictures of the consulate with his cell phone from a nearby building that was under construction. The security guards briefly detained the man before releasing him. He drove away in a police car, and a complaint was made to the Libyan police station. Sean Smith noticed the surveillance and messaged a friend online around noon. Assuming we don't die tonight, we saw one of our police that guard the compound taking pictures. According to a local security official, he and the battalion commander had met with United States diplomats 3 days before the attack and warned the Americans about deteriorating security in the area. Officials had told people, the situation's frightening, it scares us. Ambassador Stevens' diary, which was later found at the compound, recorded his concern about the growing al-Qaeda presence in the area and his worry about being on an al-Qaeda hit list. United States Security Officer Eric Nordstrom twice requested additional security for the mission in Benghazi from the State Department. His requests were denied, and according to Nordstrom, State Department official Charlene Lamb wanted to keep the security presence in Benghazi artificially low. On December 30th of 2012, the United States Senate Committee at Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs released a report flashing red, a special report of the terrorist attacks at Benghazi, wherein it was determined the desire of the State Department to maintain that low profile in Benghazi had been cited as the reason why the State Department circumvented their own overseas policy aboard the diplomatic security. In the aftermath, Clinton sought to take responsibility for the security lapses at Benghazi and expressed personal regret in her January 2013 testimony before Congress. Secretary Clinton claimed security decisions at the Benghazi compound had been made by others, stating the specific security requests pertaining to Benghazi were handled by the security professionals in the State Department. I didn't see those requests, I didn't approve them, I didn't deny them. Conducted by separate military factions of 2 separate United States compounds. The first assault occurred at the main diplomatic compound, approximately 300 yards and 100 yards wide, at about 9:40 p.m. local time, 3:40 p.m. Eastern time. Mortar fire attack on a CIA annex 1.2 miles away began at about 4 a.m. the following morning and lasted for 11 minutes. According to the Media for America Matters, the attackers stated that they were acting in response to innocence of Muslims. This was known to be false at the time and was used to support the lie and cover up that this was a terrorist attack. No more than 7 Americans were in the compound, including Ambassador Stevens. Stevens was visiting Benghazi at the time to review plans to establish a new cultural center and modernize a hospital. The ambassador also needed to prepare a report on the physical and political security environment to Benghazi. Stevens had his last meeting of the day with Turkish diplomat Consul General Ali Said Akin and escorted the Turkish diplomat to the main gate at about 8:30 p.m. local time. The street outside the compound was calm. The State Department reported no unusual activity during the day. Stevens retired to his room at 9 p.m. 9:40 p.m., large numbers of armed men shouting Allahu Akbar, which is God is great, approached the compound from multiple directions, threw grenades over the wall, and entered the compound with automatic weapons, firing RPGs and heavier weapons. A diplomatic security service agent viewed the consulate security cameras. A large number of men armed, flowing into the compound. He hit the alarm and started yelling attack over the loudspeaker. Phone calls were made to the embassy in Tripoli, the Diplomatic Security Command Center in Washington, the February 17th Martyrs Brigade, and a U.S. Quick Reaction Force located in the annex compound a little more than a mile away. Diplomatic Security Service Special Agent Scott Wicklund secured Stevens and Sean Smith, an information management officer, in the main building's safe haven. The rest of the agents left to retrieve their weapons and tried to return to the main building. The attackers entered the main building and attempted to enter the safe haven. They then spread diesel fuel in the room and set fires. Stevens, Smith, and Wicklund moved to the nearby bathroom, but then decided to leave the safe haven after being overcome by the smoke. Wicklund exited through the window, but Stevens and Smith did not follow him. Wicklund, who was severely wounded by gunfire, returned several times, but could not find them in the smoke. He went up to the roof and radioed other agents. 3 agents returned to the main building in an armored vehicle, searched the building, and found Smith's body, but not Stevens. According to the Annex security team, they had become aware of the consulate attack after 9:30 p.m. local time and were ready to respond. However, they were delayed by the top CIA officer in Benghazi. The regional security office sounded the alarm and called the Benghazi CIA Annex and the embassy in Tripoli. After some discussion, the CIA's Global Response Staff, GRS, at the Annex, which included Tyrone S. Woods, decided to attempt a rescue. By 10 p.m., the team was briefed, loaded their armored Toyota Land Cruisers, and by this time, communicators in the Annex were notifying the chain of command about current developments and a small CIA and JSOC element in Tripoli that included Glenn Dotery, which was attempting to find their way to Benghazi. The GRS team from the CIA Annex arrived at the consulate and attempted to secure the perimeter and located the ambassador and Sean Smith. Diplomatic security agent David Ubin located Smith, who was unconscious and later declared dead. The team was unable to find Stevens. The smoke filled the building. The team then exited and decided to return to the Annex with the survivors and Smith's body. While en route back to the Annex, the group's armored vehicle was hit by AK-47 rifle fire and hand grenades. The vehicle was able to make it to the destination with 2 flat tires, and the gates to the Annex were closed behind them at 11:50 p.m. The U.S. military had mobilized 3 separate teams to respond to the attacks, including UCOM CIF, which commanders in extreme force, specialized direct action hostage unit team made up of U.S. Special Force soldiers, mainly Delta Force, a Marine Security Force regiment team from Rota, Spain, and an unnamed Special Operations Forces team. At the time, AFROM was responsible for operations in Africa, the only combatant command which did not have its own SIF team, thus having the request UCOM's assistance. These teams were sent to naval air stations Signoli in Sicily, Italy, at a staging point the night of the attacks, but did not deploy to Benghazi. The United States officials stated the teams arrived at Signola after the attack was over. Just after midnight, the CIA Annex came under machine gun, rocket, mortar fire. The CIA defenders held off the attack until the morning. That same morning, Libyan government forces met up with a group of Americans, reinforcements from Tripoli, including Glenn Dotery. It arrived at Benghazi airport. The team, which included 2 active-duty JSOC operators, 5 CIA personnel, and commandeered a small jet in Tripoli, forced them to fly to Benghazi. After being held up at the airport for hours, the Libyan forces, newly arrived Americans, went to the CIA Annex at about 5 a.m. to assist in transporting approximately 32 Americans at the Annex back to the airport for evacuation. Minutes after they drove through the gates, the Annex came under heavy fire. With a lull in the fighting, Dotery began searching for his friend, Tyrone Woods. He was told he was on the roof. He found Woods on the roof with 2 other agents. Mortar round hit Woods' position, fatally wounding him. As Dotery attempted to reposition and take over, a second round fell on him and killed him. 31-year-old Diplomatic Security Service Special Agent David Ubin, CIA contractor Mark Geist suffered shrapnel injuries and several broken bones in the mortar attacks. They were informed that it was a terrorist attack. However, CIA analysts made a contradictory assessment, stating, "We believe, based on current available info, that the attacks in Benghazi were spontaneous, inspired by the protests at the embassies in Cairo, and evolved into a direct assault against the U.S. consulate, and subsequently its annex. The crowd almost certainly was a mix of individuals from across many sectors of Libyan society. That being said, we do know that Islamic extremists with ties to al-Qaeda participated in the attack." Pentagon officials had informed Defense Secretary Leon Panetta about the attack. The Pentagon had an unmanned aerial vehicle that was in the air conducting surveillance on militant groups flying over Benghazi. The drone began flying at 11:10 p.m. and began providing video feed to Washington at 5:41 p.m. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton telephoned CIA Director David Petraeus to coordinate. CIA, which made up most of U.S. government presence in Benghazi, had a 10-member security team at its annex, and the State Department believed that the team could assist the consulate in the event of the attack. That same morning, Libyan government forces met up with a group of Americans from Tripoli, including Glenn Dotery, that arrived at Benghazi airport. The team, which included 2 active-duty JSOC operators, 5 CIA personnel, commandeered a jet from Tripoli for $30,000. After being held up at the airport for hours, the forces, newly arrived Americans, went to the annex at 5 a.m. to assist in transporting approximately 32 Americans back to the base at the airport for evacuation. Minutes after they drove through the gates, the annex came under heavy fire with a lull of fighting. Immediately, several agents ran onto the roof to assess damage and help the wounded. At the time, JSOC operators were using a handheld device displaying images from a Predator drone above, which had been sent by the Department of Defense U.S. Africa Command after request. The defenders agreed to evacuate to the airport and were attacked with small arms fire along the route. The evacuation of about 30 Americans included 6 State Department personnel and Smith's body. They were unable to locate Ambassador Stevens at the time. Ambassador Stevens' body was found by a group of Libyans who had accessed the room through a window. They were unaware of his identity, and Abel Kadar Fadel, a freelance photographer who was with them, told the Associated Press Stevens was unconscious and maybe moved his head, but only once. Ahmed Shams, a 22-year-old art student, told the Associated Press they were happy when they found him alive and tried to rescue him. Showing Libyans trying to extract the ambassador from the smoke-filled room, where he was found unconscious. According to Al Bush, the Libyans saw he was alive and breathing. His eyelids flickered, though they took him to be a foreigner. No one recognized him as the ambassador. He was taken to the Benghazi Medical Center, a hospital controlled by the Sharia militia, in a private car, as there was no ambulance to carry him. He was administered CPR for 90 minutes by Dr. Ziad Zaid, and according to Zed, Stevens died from asphyxiation caused by smoke inhalation and had no other apparent injuries. The doctor said they believed the officers from the Libyan Interior Ministry transported the body to the airport. State Department officials said that they do not know who took Stevens to the hospital or transported the body to the airport and into U.S. custody. Shortly after the Benghazi attack, Secretary of State Clinton commissioned an independent accountability review board to investigate, chaired by retired Ambassador Thomas R. Pickering, with Vice Chair retired Chairman of Joint Chiefs Staff Michael Mullen. The board released their final report December 19th of 2012, made 29 recommendations to the State Department on how to improve its operations, which Clinton pledged to implement as part of this investigation. 4 career State Department officials were criticized for denying requests for additional security at the facility prior to the attack. By the end of 2012, Eric J. Boswell, Assistant Secretary of State for Diplomatic Security, resigned under pressure, while 3 others were suspended. None of the other Benghazi investigations identified any wrongdoing by any individuals. However, the Obama administration did continue to deny accountability, as well as Secretary Clinton. 4 brave men were killed that day. 4 good men were killed that day. But did they really have to be killed? Blaming this on the protest and not ties to Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda having a stronghold safe house right next to where the embassy mission was. That's why this remains one of the greatest tragedies of American history. Not so much as how many people were killed, but the fact that they were in imminent danger the entire time and nobody did anything.